Welcome to an excerpt from Jihad in the West, Black Flag over Babylon by Mark Selinsky, with a foreword by Sebastian Gorka. It was published by Indiana University Press in Bloomington and Indianapolis. This reading is presented by Kensington Security Consulting, which brings education to national security. This excerpt comes from Chapter 4 and examines the sadists and psychopaths of the Caliphate, interspecies predators, psychopaths, and foreign fighters. I'm glad I've lived to see an enemy prepared to die for something other than their bank balance. Ian Brady, infamous British Moors murderer, referring to the Caliphate, 2016. Sometimes called psychopaths, sometimes sociopaths, and historically called evil. They are men and women without remorse. Though they are not necessarily mentally ill, they lack a conscience. Lacking empathy, they can harm, betray, or kill people, even family members. But there is no current expert consensus that Westerners who fight for the Caliphate are significantly more psychopathic than other cohorts. Nevertheless, many of the foreign fighters display several classic traits of the psychopath. They enjoy hurting people and lying about activities and conditions in the Islamic State. Some have poor behavioral skills and act impulsively. They were juvenile delinquents and indulgent in parasitic lifestyles in their Western homes. They have not shown remorse for their harm to others. There are also female sadists, some of whom capture headlines in European tabloids. Some display great pleasure in the suffering of non-Muslims, much like the Nazi concentration camp guards. These emotional vampires sometimes brag about killing non-Muslims and regale their online audience with the details of torture. It is difficult to explain this sadism exclusively in religious terms, because they take ostentatious joy in torture. Nonetheless, they justify mass murder, rape, and enslavement with Quranic verses. As with their male counterparts, some of the women have fun, chuckling about bloody beheadings, regretting only that they did not commit the murder themselves. The husband and wife San Bernardino couple who killed their co-workers and abandoned their young child relished the planning and execution of their killing spree. However, other Westerners who serve the Caliphate are not abnormally antisocial in the context of life in the Islamic State. They cooperate with their companions in the Caliphate. A psychopath would not likely risk death for a cause that did not directly benefit him or her. Psychopaths are driven only by advancing their personal interests. Further, many foreign fighters in the Caliphate are protective of their fellow soldiers. Some have exposed themselves to danger for the Islamic State. Some have been self-sacrificial. Many more have emotionally bonded with their comrades, and a psychopath would not. But there are some psychopaths in the Caliphate, and they are profiled below. Profile 14, Very Cruel Men, Mehdi Nemouche. If there was a club for sadists in the Caliphate, Mehdi Nemouche would certainly be a prominent member. By his own account, he relished torture. Well known to French police authorities, Nemouche had been in and out of prison much of his 29 years. That is where he was radicalized. Some of his convictions were petty, such as driving without a license, but he was also sentenced for armed robbery, which landed him a 5-year sentence. Sometime in early 2013, Nemouche went to Syria to fight for the Jihad. He flourished there. He was more than a garden-variety thug-turned Islamist. Nemouche was particularly sadistic toward captives, even by the brutal standards of the Caliphate's Foreign Legion. Nemouche delighted in torturing European captives. The torture went on all night until prayers at dawn, a French survivor wrote in Le Point magazine. The howls of the prisoners alternated with shouts in French. He is also supposed to have serenaded his captives with his own rendition of Charles Aznavour love songs, but at some point Nemouche fell from the favour of the Caliphate's leaders. French criminologist Alain Bauer says ISIS did not like him at all. Bauer compares him to Zacharias Moussaoui, sometimes called the 20th hijacker from the 9/11 plot, who was so crazy that Al-Qaeda leadership didn't know what to do with him. In June 2014, French police in Marseille arrested Mehdi Nemouche for mass murder. He was the primary suspect in the Brussels Jewish Museum attack of May 2014, in which 3 Jews were shot dead. Today, Nemouche sits in prison. Mohamed Emwazi. I've seen it before. You all squirm like animals, like pigs. Mohamed Emwazi, referring to beheadings. Like Nemouche, Kuwaiti-born Mohamed Emwazi enjoyed hurting people. He certainly displayed the classic signs of psychopathy: lack of empathy, grandiosity, glibness, and a need for power. He was sadistic by any standard, and it was he who cut off the heads of Western captives for a global audience on YouTube. Emwazi's family moved to Britain when he was 6 years old. He was smart enough to complete a college degree in computer science, and his primary and secondary school teachers remember him as quiet, lonely, and quick to take offense. In high school, Emwazi underwent anger management therapy after fighting with fellow students, and when he drank, he had difficulty controlling his temper. He found Islam and became a leader in an Islamist sleeper cell, the London Boys, and he raised money for the jihadis. If he was uncomfortable in Britain, he appears to have been at ease in Syria. A released hostage related that the British John Cantley and American Jim Foley were forced to compose a song titled "Welcome to the Lovely Hotel Osama." They sang it to the mocking delight of the 3 British jihadis who guarded them most of the time. These 3 were collectively known as the Beatles. Mohamed Emwazi was dubbed Jihadi John, after John Lennon. Another jihadi, dubbed George, was particularly fond of the song "George Shouted, Anyone who doesn't know the words, I'll kick to death." Another torturer was Najim Lakraoui. He would leave the Middle East and travel to Europe, where he would die in the Brussels airport attack in 2016, which killed 32 people and injured more than 300. Jihadi John enjoyed torturing other captives. The group's 23 hostages suffered constant beatings and degradations, and one survivor likened their condition to that of former presidential aspirant Senator John McCain at the hands of the Vietnamese communists. They called their digs the ISIS Hilton. Emwazi fathered a son in Syria who is entitled to British citizenship, but the boy will never know his father, who was vaporized in an airstrike in November 2015. Vaporized is current slang for killing people through drone-launched munitions. Emwazi knew he was being hunted by British and US special forces. He knew that modern technology and first-rate policing revealed his identity, despite his camouflage. But in his skyscraping vanity, he repeatedly gave away his positions. A New York baseball cap, his signature piece of apparel, may have identified him to targeteers, according to one British tabloid. 2 MQ-9 Reaper drones locked in on him and flashed the Beatles' image to Creech Air Force Base in Indian Springs, Nevada. As Emwazi got in a car at the Islamic courts, 2 Hellfire missiles exploded atop his car. Few were surprised when the 27-year-old former Londoner was vaporized. The state later eulogized him as an honorable brother. But a military spokesperson for the country that killed him had a different take. This guy was a human animal, and killing him is probably making the world a better place. Summary: Westerners will still be drawn to the Caliphate. There will always be a desire among the young to live in a perfect society, a utopia. However, the image of Raqqa as an Islamic utopia or even a habitable environment has been tarnished. Some will be driven by jihad and will come to fight. Some, like Thundercat, will die in battle and, in the words of the Islamic State, be finally at peace with Allah. This concludes a reading from Jihad and the West, Black Flag over Babylon, by Mark Selinsky, with a foreword by Sebastian Gorka. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing and pressing the like button. Jihad and the West is available for purchase online and in select bookstores worldwide. Dr. Selinsky's latest book, Cauldron of Terror, Hamas, Israel and the World, will be available in spring 2026. Nothing in this reading or any other reading in Jihad and the West represents the official position of any person or agency of the United States government. On behalf of Kensington Security Consulting, thank you for listening.